Thank you for joining us today.
And we hope each of you are having a good afternoon, and to our international guest as well, a good evening to you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, I like your shirt.
I do too, Corbin.
They're pretty nice.
How did this come about?
Well, we're now going to wear matching shirts
Right. Okay.
to these live events.
All right.
Well, again, thank you for joining us today. Again, today, not only do we have people here in the U.S., I'm seeing Wisconsin, Virginia, Ohio, Florida, Vermont, but we're lucky enough to actually have some people from overseas joining us today.
Absolutely.
I saw someone from England, and of course, I know we sometimes have people from Australia and so on. So I know that our time difference and everything, that's a little bit of an obstacle to get over. So I thank you for joining us and bearing with us.
Absolutely.
Well, what are we going to talk about today, Mike?
Well, today, Corbin, I think last week we kind of done a little preview about what was going to take place this afternoon. And we were going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to hoof cracks.
And after doing some research and looking at some pictures, there's definitely
there's some bad and there's some ugly.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep. And we hope that you never have had to encounter a hoof crack.
Absolutely.
And if you have, well, the issues and the hard work that goes into a lot of times just eliminating that crack altogether. Because the problem with these cracks is that they don't heal themselves. Mm-hmm. Basically, that horse has to regenerate, regrow that crack completely out and replace it with a new foot. And if that crack originates out of the coronary band, we're looking at approximately a year to do that.
Well, and not only that, but there are just so many factors that come into play when we talk about the creation of those hoof cracks.
Right.
And so one of the big issues is actually determining which factor or which combination of factors is affecting the hoof to create that crack.
In fact, that's one of the first things that we want to do is try to determine what caused the crack in the first place.
Absolutely.
If we can. Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Before we get started, just a few kind of housekeeping items. Just at the beginning of this presentation, we've had a few people post links in our comments. If you guys see one of those, ignore it. Please don't click on any links that anyone posts unless it's us from Life Data.
And if they ask for a credit card,
yes. This is free to watch. This is free. So do not give anyone any type of credit card information. Secondly, of course, we are live right now. This is Friday, 2 o'clock Central Time here in the U.S. This will continue to be live, for the whole segment. So feel free to drop your questions in here. We're here to try to answer them. Of course, the more people we have, on here, the little bit harder it is for us to keep up with those questions. But please post them, and we will do our best to not only keep up with them, but to answer them.
Right.
If you've been part of these, then you know that one of my favorite things to do is, of course, stop Mike in the middle of this conversation
and ask a question.
Get him off track a little bit.
Right.
Secondly, of course, we will be doing giveaways. Unfortunately, due to international giveaway laws, these giveaways were only before the U.S.
Sorry about that.
So we do apologize about that, and we are so thankful to have anyone who is international here on the event. That's not really a choice that we've made. It's more, again, just those international giveaway laws that just kind of complicate things too much to be able to do those giveaways in other countries. But those who are watching live here in the U.S., not only are we going to have the grand prize giveaway, but we're also going to be doing the live giveaway. Over here with the live giveaways, we've got, again, the hoof clay and the finish, which, as we've talked about before, these are your best friends when you're battling those.
Absolutely.
Those
for any of your environmental conditions that's working against the foot of the horse, whether that's bacteria, fungi, whether that's wet conditions or even dry conditions, the Ferris Finish is a tremendous product to use for that. The hoof clay is in a little different form. It's in a putty-like form, and the clay is for specific problem areas, either within the hoof wall or anything that's going on in the sole of the foot. And of course, one of the major problems that we often hear about at trade shows is I have a thrush problem.
Yes.
So the hoof clay is an excellent product for thrush.
Absolutely.
And if you got any wall separation, the hoof clay works wonderful in filling that void as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it is an antimicrobial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very safe, very non-caustic. And when we make that application, we're not burning or killing any hoof tissue at all.
Which is essential. Never
Right.
use anything caustic.
Right.
Nothing
And
that'll
to our
burn it.
international friends too, the product is available.
Yes.
Sure.
Those are available for our international friends. Of course, then we also have the Farrier's Formula hat, the T-shirt that comes in both teal and green, as you can see that behind there. And then another product, of course, many of our horse owners also are dog owners.
Right.
So this Life Data Breeder's Formula, this is wonderful for your dog. Keeping the skin condition, nice coat quality.
Right.
Mental composure, even helps with the joints.
Right.
I know you can start your puppy just straight on
Sure.
this. So this is our little prize pack that we're going to be doing. We'll be asking a question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer that question. Again, this is for U.S. only, but you'll have 2 minutes to answer that question, and then we'll pick a random person who got it right, and we'll win this, and we'll have 3 of those. And then, of course, if you look at the bottom, we have that scrolling bar there. You'll see a link to our grand prize giveaway. You can enter in that contest at any time, but make sure you're here in the live event because we will be giving away that secret code, which will increase your chances to win.
Right. And as we go through the presentation this afternoon, let's keep it very informal. As we go through it, if you have a question, please type that in, send it to us, and Corbin will stop me at whatever point, and we'll try to answer that question.
Well, I'm going to stop you right now. We've got Melissa here. Says she started her gelding on the Farrier's Formula Double Strength, and she is so happy because he eats it right up.
Well, thank you very much. Farrier's Formula is a highly palatable product. It's an alfalfa-based product, and there's a few horses that will actually refuse the product itself. So, yeah.
And then, of course, Heather says, I just started using your Hoof Formula pellets today.
Well, thank you very much.
So thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Let's see, and we got one more. What would you recommend to make sure horses' hoofs are strong? Of course, I know we'll be getting into that.
Sure.
But and especially, I guess let's just jump right in here and start the presentation. And
sure.
But when she mentions that strong hoof, of course, we know that one of the biggest preventative measures for the hoof crack is building a strong hoof,
right?
Which takes both environmental protection and nutritional
support,
if
you want to call it that, right?
Absolutely. Right. So let's just dive right in, and I'll let you just start off and talk about some of these hoof cracks.
Okay.
And then we can get into building that strong hoof.
Yeah. And once again, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And when we think about a hoof crack, that hoof crack can either originate from let's say the bottom of the hoof wall itself and actually migrate up. It actually could start at the coronary band and migrate down, either way, okay? And so there are many things that's going to create a hoof crack, all right? And let's take a look at these right quick, and then we'll go into more detail. But one of the things, and we've already alluded to this, is the environment.
Yeah.
And we know that bacteria is ever present, and bacteria wants to consume and eat that hoof capsule, okay? And the form of bacteria that does the most damage is going to be an anaerobic form. That is bacteria that thrives in the absence of oxygen. So with that being said, then we've got to do a good job maintaining. From a horse owner standpoint, as far as picking out and cleaning the foot of the horse. And of course, one of the most common areas that you're going to have thrush is going to be on either side of the frog and the central part of the frog as well. So we need to pick up, we need to clean those feet out basically on a daily basis. Besides bacteria and fungi, another major culprit in creating a crack is excess moisture, okay? And what excess moisture is going to do over a period of time is it's going to soften that hoof capsule, allowing that hoof capsule to expand. And a lot of times we're going to end up with some separation in that white line area. And if this is a barefoot horse, that becomes a direct entry point for debris and bacteria to take a hold and start creating another problem there that's often prevalent that we call white line disease as well. And then on the opposite spectrum of too much moisture is dryness. And dryness will actually do the same thing. Okay? It's going to cause that hoof capsule to not expand, but it's going to contract. And as it contracts, it wants to dry out, it's going to want to chip, and it becomes the right situation for it to crack as well. Okay? So bacteria, fungi, wet conditions, dry conditions. We've got to control those.
And it's funny you mentioned the different conditions. On our event page, we asked, what kind of conditions are you fighting right now? And we had multiple, a wide range. We had some people who are just, being just devoured with rain right now. We have other people who, just dry as can be. And of course, then we have those who are fluctuating, right? They'll have a week of wet, and then 2 weeks of dry, and then a week of wet again. And every single one of those conditions can lead to the development of those hoof cracks.
And so what you alluded to again, Corbin, is this going from wet to dry, wet to dry, wet to dry takes a toll on the foot of the horse.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now, another thing that we can't do anything about, and that's genetics.
Yes.
We know that there are certain horses that are prone to foot issues. Okay? And that could be thin soles, it could be thin hoof walls. And if we have thin hoof walls, then we're more prone to some form of a crack. Okay? So genetics,
Is there a particular horse breed
well,
that you would say?
One breed that really comes to my mind is the thoroughbred. Okay? I realize that we have some breeds of thoroughbreds that have good, sound, solid feet, but then we have some that their feet literally fall apart. And we have to do everything possible from an environmental standpoint and from a nutritional standpoint to get the best foot possible under that genetically deficient horse.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely. I got a couple questions here,
Okay.
just right off the bat, that I just thought we could hit real quick. We did have someone want to know the difference between the original and double strength.
Okay.
So, I'll just let you hit that one real quick.
Okay. Of course, the original formulation has been here for 40 plus years now. And in the last, 10, 11, 12 years, we came up with a little different formulation called double strength. Now, the original is going to be either in a white bag or a white pail, whereas the double strength is going to be in this green vacuum seal bag here.
And for those who are not in the U.S. Or Canada, you might know this product is double concentrate.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so the difference is this: regardless of which one you choose to feed, you're going to get the same amount of nutrients in whatever you feed the horse. All right. On the original, on a 1,000-pound horse, we're looking at a cup or 6 ounces of product per day. With a double strength, we're only looking at half of that, Corbin. So we're only looking at a half a cup or 3 ounces. But we get the same amount of nutrients in that 1 cup versus that half a cup. Of course, another good selling point of the double strength over the original is cost. Here in the U.S., the suggested retail price is about $70 for the double strength. That's essentially a 2-month supply for that 1,000-pound horse, meaning that you're looking at an investment of about $35 per month, whereas the white bag is only a 1-month supply, and we're looking at about $45, $46 per month versus the $35. So we get the same nutrients. The difference is the amount that we feed per day and the cost, really. And the other difference is this: the original is going to have just a little more alfalfa in it versus the double strength.
Okay. We did have Irene Jones says that her horse was just diagnosed with sinking laminitis. Irene, we do have a new product. It's a companion product to Farrier's formula. It's called the Life Data Lamina formula. Not too long ago, we actually did a live event on laminitis. I definitely suggest that you check out that live event. We talk about that product more and, of course, laminitis. But please message us, and we can definitely answer a lot of your questions there. And we can even get Dr. Gravely involved a little bit and Mike here and see if we can help you out a little bit.
And work closely with your farrier,
Yes.
your veterinarian in this situation there, and just follow their directions as far as the recovery of the horse then.
So this next question is really good, and we're kind of getting back into the hoof cracks here. Of course, we talked about the development of them and how they're kind of being caused a little bit. But how do horse owners know, I guess, the severity of that hoof crack? Amy would like to know, can a small hoof crack on the front be superficial only and not of much concern? When does it become a concern?
Okay, you're exactly right. A lot of our superficial cracks are not of major concern. We want to watch them. We don't want those superficial cracks to continue to move, whether that's up from the end of the toe itself or the end of the hoof capsule or from the coronary band. Now, if we have a crack that's originating from the coronary band, that is a worse situation than the other direction there. Because if it's originating out of the coronary band, a lot of times that crack can be pretty deep and actually get into sensitive tissue. And if it's into that sensitive tissue, a lot of times we're going to see some fluid discharge. We can actually see blood. If we have an infection that's already set up there, we can have the oozing of pus from that crack itself. If the horse is lame, we need to be concerned. If that crack is originating out of the coronary band itself and we have instability in the hoof wall, then we need to be very concerned as well. But a lot of your superficial cracks will be grown out through nutrition and using some type of topical to protect the surface of the hoof capsule itself. But yeah, just be mindful even if you have a superficial crack, yes.
We also had someone ask about grass cracks.
Okay.
Is that something that you're going to be talking about today?
Yes, it is. In fact, if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, we're going to talk about the different types of cracks, and grass crack is one of those.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get rolling back into the presentation.
Okay. Another contributing factor to the creation of a crack is nutrition. So if a horse is not being fed a balanced diet, if it's unbalanced there, then the daily nutrient need is not being met. We also know that dermal tissue is the largest glandular organ in the horse itself. And this requires massive amounts of nutrients on a daily basis to maintain, replenish, and regrow this dermal tissue. Of course, when we talk about dermal tissue, we're talking about the foot of the horse, we're talking about the skin of the horse, we're talking about the hair of the horse, and even one aspect of the joint that we forget about is the dermal side of the joint, which is cartilage, tendon, and ligament as well. So a balanced nutrient diet is highly important, number one. And then if we have a horse that is, if we want to call it genetically deficient, prone to poor quality feed, or if we have a foot issue, then we can actually add a good hoof supplement to that diet, specifically for dermal tissue growth and improvement as well.
And when we talk about nutrition, of course, we talk about a lot of times the lack of nutrition,
right?
But overly providing carbs and an overweight horse,
mineral, vitamins,
the minerals, all that all plays a factor. So when we talk about nutrition and diet, we're talking about balance.
Right. And when we say balance, we mean that your protein has to be balanced, your calories have to be balanced, your minerals have to be in the right proportion and ratio to each other, your amino acids have to be balanced, vitamins have to be balanced as well.
Absolutely.
And if anything is out of balance, then that's going to interfere with the absorption of something else that horse needs to grow good dermal tissue.
Absolutely. And one of the first signs of an imbalanced diet is going to be hoof issues.
That's right. The farrier in particular is going to pick up on it. He'll see that in the foot.
Absolutely.
Sure will. Another thing that we often don't think about that can lead to a hoof crack is the conformation of the horse.
Yes.
Okay? So if we have a horse that's toed out, toed in, conformation problems, that's felt directly within the hoof capsule itself. So it's very important that we have a good farrier, a professional farrier that understands conformation, and that understands how to balance that foot as well. Because if we have one side of the foot that's higher than the other, say if the medial side is higher, then we have more pressure on this side. When that horse takes a step, that's going to set up this hoof capsule for a possible crack. So we have to have balance there, from side to side and from toe to heel as well. Okay.
So a lot like when you consider a car being out of alignment, and so with the tires, it's going to wear
on one side.
On one side.
Right. Okay. All right. And then another thing that leads to hoof cracks is when we don't maintain a regular farrier schedule.
Absolutely.
We go too long. Okay. And let me show you an example of that. And that's this particular foot right here. In this hoof capsule, half of it has been trimmed, but the other half didn't get trimmed. Okay. This hoof capsule or this particular foot went way too long. And basically we end up growing a long toenail there, if you want to call it there, and that becomes very susceptible to cracking, chipping, and creating a massive toe crack here in the front as well. Now, do you have a question?
We did have someone just real quick, since we were kind of on that topic of nutrition. What are we going to do for like a selenium deficiency?
Of course, there are different areas in the U.S. and around the world where we have a selenium deficiency in the soil itself. Okay. Now, selenium is a mineral that we need to be very careful with when we supplement, because that horse only needs so many milligrams per day. And once we exceed that amount, then we can actually create a selenium toxicity problem, which within itself is going to do more harm and damage to hoof quality than a deficiency itself. I would be more concerned with a toxicity problem than I would be with a deficiency problem when it comes to selenium. Now, the horse needs selenium, yes. Typically, we don't want to exceed somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 milligrams per day. And when we get beyond that, then we can run into problems quickly. Okay?
Yep.
So selenium can come from the grass, the hay that's being fed the horse. If we're in one of those areas that's selenium deficient, a lot of times selenium will be added to the feed of the horse, to the feed. And then if we're feeding supplements and there's selenium in that, it becomes very easy to exceed the amount that we need.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, when we talk about cracks, basically we have two types. We have what we call a vertical crack, which this is a vertical crack in itself. And then we actually have a horizontal crack, like so. Now, a vertical crack is the most common form of cracks that we're going to actually see in the hoof itself. All right? Of course, with the horizontal crack, most of the time they're going to originate out of the coronary band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that can be created from an abscess or an injury that's taken place there at the coronary band itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And what's going to happen if that abscess is in the coronary band, then it ruptures there a lot of times. And then this crack becomes horizontal, and as the horse regenerates and regrows the foot down, then this horizontal crack becomes visible then, okay? But the most common form of a crack is going to be a vertical as well, all right?
Gotcha.
And as far as, we had the question a little bit earlier about a grass crack.
Yes.
So we might ask, well, how does a crack get its name?
Mm-hmm.
And in most cases, it depends on the location of where that crack is within that hoof capsule itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So essentially, the first one that we'll talk about is a toe crack.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say it's a toe crack, then Corbin, where do you think the crack would be?
Just taking a stab here.
Okay.
The toe?
The toe, right here in the very front. Typically, toe cracks are going to start right here in the front part of that foot. Now, that part of the hoof capsule is also the thickest part of the hoof wall as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the thickest part of the hoof wall, why would we have a crack there?
Mm.
And of course, if this is the thickest part in the front, as we rotate around to the quarters, we have less thickness of hoof wall as we come to the quarter side. And as we get on back to the heel, we have even less as far as hoof wall thickness, okay? Mm-hmm. A lot of times a toe crack, since that is the thickest part of the hoof wall and should be the strongest part of the hoof wall, a lot of times we'll have some other factors that come into play that actually creates the crack itself.
Okay.
All right? Bacteria, white line disease, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They help weaken the laminae, the attachment there, and we end up with a toe crack itself, okay? Another reason that we often will have a toe crack too, and we don't think about this, and I didn't think about this myself as well, but if we have a horse that has navicular or has pain in the heel area there, then that horse is going to be very sensitive as to where it wants to land when it moves. So what it's going to do, it's going to want to try to land on the toe first. And what that's doing is it's putting more leverage on the front of the hoof capsule, more pressure, and a lot of times we end up with toe crack as well.
Absolutely.
Okay? All right. A grass crack. And I think a lady asked what a grass crack was. Now let me kind of give you a rough idea. Most of your grass cracks are going to start at the end of the hoof wall, down here, and they want to migrate up, like so. A lot of these grass cracks are going to be superficial. A lot of these grass cracks are actually, when that foot is trimmed, are going to be eliminated, okay? What causes those? Wet conditions, dry conditions, bacteria, poor hoof quality, and the list goes on, okay? Grass cracks are something that we monitor, that we watch, and we do everything we can to eliminate those as well. Here in the South, one of the things as we get into summer, we have heavy dews in the morning time.
Yes.
And if we have a horse that's out 24/7 or out earlier in the morning, they're going through this excess moisture that's created by the excess dew. A lot of times that contributes to what we call a grass crack itself. Okay?
Gotcha.
So we talked about a toe crack, we talked about a grass crack, and then another biggie is a quarter crack. And so with that being said, Corbin, where do you think that would be? It would be back here on the side of the hoof capsule, which we call the quarter here.
Absolutely.
Of course, we also mentioned that we have less hoof wall thickness there, so we don't have as much strength and we don't have as much support there versus the toe itself. Now, there are many factors that would contribute to a quarter crack, and most quarter cracks are going to start at the coronary band and migrate down to the ground. Okay? And I think this is a perfect time for question number 1.
Oh, all
Okay?
right. So this is our first giveaway question. Again, we're going to ask the question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. Will back here, it will randomly pick one of the correct answers at the end of the 2 minutes. And that winner will win, of course, this prize pack of the clay finish, hat, shirt, and breeder's formula.
Sure.
And real quick, this just hit me. We did have someone ask about the hoof clay. It is available on our website. There's online dealers who carry it, and of course,
Sure.
tack and feed stores and
Right.
so on. There's a dealer locator on our website where you can actually go and look at someone who can get products near you if you would like to do the tack and feed store. Okay, I'm sorry. So first question here.
The first question.
Oh, you've already given the answer to this one.
I have. Way back.
Okay. So let me get my timer here,
Okay?
and let me get it set up for 2
2
minutes.
Okay?
So the first question is: most hoof cracks are vertical or horizontal?
Which one?
So 2 minutes, and just drop it here in the comments, and then we will have someone.
Yep. Most hoof cracks are either vertical or horizontal. Which one?
Vertical or horizontal?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you this, Mike. Are there any? You mentioned, of course, here in the South and the dew. Is there any type of specific cracks that happen more frequently in different areas?
A lot of grass cracks, number one, in a lot of your wet conditions. Yeah, yep. I often here in the South refer to that as a pasture foot. Okay, just created from the excess moisture itself.
Absolutely.
All right. Of course, a lot of folks will deal with a toe crack. And another very similar crack that we'll talk about in just a minute is a sand crack as well. The quarter crack is one that's very difficult to deal with a lot of times, in that it originates out of the coronary band, and a lot of times it goes all the way down to the ground itself. And a lot of times we end up with a lot of instability in that hoof wall, meaning that you can actually move the hoof wall itself. And so where it originates, that means we're looking at least a year to regrow the foot.
Gotcha.
So a quarter crack can be one of the worst, with the exception of maybe a heel crack itself. And we'll talk about a heel crack here in just a minute.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Well, again, let's see, we've got about 20 seconds left. So make sure you're dropping in your answer, and we will,
Sure.
Of course, this person will win the finish, the clay, breeder's formula, and the hat. Again, this is for the U.S. only due to those international laws. And we are ticking down. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. And let me check with Will and see if we have a winner.
We do.
And the winner
And the winner is?
The winner is Aaron Degnan.
Aaron Degnum.
Degnan. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry if we pronounced that name wrong. Aaron, congratulations. You're going to email cservice@lifedatalabs.com. In the subject line, please put live giveaway winner. We'll need your address, your t-shirt size, whether you want the teal or the dark green shirt, and I guess your phone number to make sure that we can give that to the shippers. So again, just email that to cservice@lifedatalabs.com. So we got 2 more live giveaways. And then again, if you missed it here in the beginning, we are going to have a grand prize giveaway. You'll follow that link there at the bottom. And just one more time, we will never message you or anything like that. So if you receive a message saying that you're winning from fake account. Please do not click on the link. And so let's answer the question, right?
Sure, it's vertical.
Yeah, vertical.
Yep. Most hoof cracks are going to be vertical.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And before the question, we were talking about quarter cracks. Essentially, it takes place back in the quarters itself, originate from the coronary band. And you might ask, well, what causes a quarter crack?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And we've already mentioned this before. The conformation of the horse is critical to a quarter crack. Balance and the job that your farrier does in balancing that foot is critical to preventing a quarter crack.
Mm-hmm.
So conformation and balance, and then of course, if we can, it can actually be created from an injury as well, where we have a horse that overstrikes. In other words, its hind foot comes up and hits in this particular area here, back in the heel and back in the quarter. We can actually create a quarter crack from that situation as well. Of course, then we can throw in many more reasons, poor nutrition, the environment, all of that contributes to a quarter crack, okay? But conformation and balance is highly critical in preventing those as well. I think we're going to do question number 2 right now.
Oh,
Corbin.
you want to go back to back?
Yes, sir. I want to go ahead and knock out number 2.
Okay, number 2. Again, we're going to have 2 minutes to answer question number 2, and then out of the correct answers, we've got a random generator over here that Will's running, and he's going to randomly pick one of those correct answers.
And
you've given this one already.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you read that
All right, let me get my timer ready.
while I look at my notes here.
Okay, so question number 2. A horizontal crack in the hoof wall is often caused by blank or blank.
2 answers.
So 2 answers for this one. Again, timer is set. You have 2 minutes. This is, again, a live giveaway for the U.S. only due to international laws. The question, again, is most hoof cracks are that's the last one. A horizontal crack in the hoof wall is often caused by blank or blank.
And while we're waiting,
yes, they need both. So we're looking for 2. It's caused by blank or blank. There's 2 different things.
Will, would it be convenient for you to put up slide number 1? Can you do that, or do we need to wait till
I put it up right after this?
Okay,
question?
we'll wait till after the question then, okay?
All right, so we're just about at about a minute left for you to answer those questions. Let's see. Let me make sure we're not missing any questions from anyone before that we can answer.
Another form of crack that actually originates again out of the coronary band is a sand crack.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times a sand crack is going to take place in the toe itself. Sand cracks can be pretty nasty as well, since they originate out of the coronary band and want to go to the ground itself. And a lot of times that sand crack comes about from an injury. The horse can actually hit something there in the coronary band. The horse could be kicked in the coronary band. And another contributing factor too that would cause it to originate out of the coronary band would be white line disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we had bacteria that actually started at the end of the toe. It migrated all the way up to the coronary band.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what we've done is we've hollowed that area out underneath the hoof wall there in the front. And so that severely weakens that, allowing that crack to form there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Absolutely.
2 minutes are up.
That 2 minutes is up. So the answer to question number 2, a horizontal crack in the hoof wall is often caused by an abscess or an injury to the coronary band.
Right.
So abscess or injury. Let's see, we can check with Will. We have a winner. Okay, so congratulations to Caitlin Rakers. Congratulations.
R-A-K-E-R.
Rakers,
Right.
Rakers, right? If I pronounce your name wrong, I apologize. Email cservice@lifedatalabs.com. In the subject line, put live giveaway winner. And again, you'll win the finish, the clay, a t-shirt, hat, and the breeder's formula. We'll need your t-shirt size, what color shirt, the teal or the dark green, shipping address, and your phone number.
Okay.
Again, we got one more of those. And of course, our grand prize, which is down, you can see the link there. But of course, we will have the keyword that will increase your chances to win.
Sure.
So stay tuned on that. Well, Mike, one of the things I am noticing, and something that we've talked about a little bit before, is that a lot of these cracks are going to be caused through a combination of things, right? So if you've got a hoof that's weakened due to poor nutrition, but then that horse, strikes it or is then exposed to those wet conditions and so on, those cracks can begin to form due to that combination of items.
Right. Like I say, it can be a combination of several different things. Okay, you go ahead and put up slide number 1 for us. And these are just some examples here that we're looking at here. The foot on the left is an extremely dry foot, very brittle, especially around in the quarter side, where our nail holes were at one point in time. And I'm assuming that this horse more than likely threw a shoe, lost a shoe, and in the process lost part of the hoof wall itself. It looks like we got a bunch of superficial cracks that are trying to migrate up to the coronary band. Looks like we even got a little chip or a little crack there in the toe itself. The foot there in the middle, on the right-hand side of the hoof capsule, it looks like we got some flaring out that's taking place there. It looks like that side of the hoof wall itself is trying to chip off or break off. And then that third foot is pretty nasty there. I'm going to make the assumption that we had a problem that started at the coronary band, and at this point in time, the horse is trying to grow that hoof capsule out. So some pretty nasty foot there on the right. And go ahead and put up the next slide, which is number 2. And this is what we call the bad and the ugly here.
Oh, that is nasty.
And we certainly hope that you never have a horse that ends up in a situation like this. And I will say that what created this problem itself was a combination of several things. Nutrition was number 1, and then the other thing was the environment. In fact, this horse literally was standing in water for quite a bit of the time, okay, until it was put into a better situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? And so we're going to take a look at this foot again toward the end of the presentation. Okay?
Hey, real quick, we did have someone ask, Melissa, so is the hoof dressing good or bad to put on? It depends on, I guess, the hoof dressing. I'm assuming she's talking about
Is she talking about just a general hoof dressing, I'm assuming?
I'm assuming so.
Okay, is a hoof dressing bad to put on? As long as it doesn't block the needed oxygen that hoof needs to breathe. And as long as that hoof dressing is not caustic or it doesn't burn or kill hoof tissue,
absolutely,
it would be safe to use as well.
Now, as far as like our farrier's finish here, it is safe to put on that hoof because that's going to help with that moisture control. It's going to help with the bacteria, and it is non-caustic. So I know several people just use their own hands. We have some people who just use brushes because they don't like to get it on their hands. But that's our kind of our golden rule here when it comes to topicals and dressings. If it is caustic and it says do not get on your own hands, don't put it on your horse.
That's right. Okay. All right. As we continue to talk about cracks, another one is a bar crack.
Okay.
And I've got and if you're not familiar with the bars in the foot, and this may be a little bit hard to see, but the bar is an extension of the hoof wall itself. In fact, the bar starts right here and then it progresses forward here. That's part of the hoof wall. Okay? Now, what happens is that we end up with a crack or a separation in the bar itself. And it could come about from an imbalance in the hoof capsule itself. It could come about from a bacterial invasion, a fungal invasion that has weakened the bars itself. So this is a bar crack right here. And that's just where it's going to take place. And with a bar crack, we're going to be into sensitive tissue, meaning that the horse is going to be extremely sore, the horse is going to be extremely lame. So the bar crack is another tough situation, just like the quarter crack's going to be to overcome.
Not
Okay?
not to mention that being at the bottom of the hoof, that's going to be extra exposure to those
All the-
bacteria, fungi,
Right.
all those environmental conditions. Because every time that hoof hits the ground,
Right. So it complicates things.
absolutely.
Altogether, right? Okay. So, in the last crack that we're going to talk about this afternoon is basically a heel crack.
Heel crack.
Okay. And that is in the very back here. Basically, we're looking at somewhere in this area right here as far as a heel crack itself. And this is going to be the thinnest part of the hoof wall itself and the weakest part itself. So if this has been softened by moisture, makes it very easy to crack. If the shoe is misplaced on the foot itself, then we could end up with a crack, and I'll show you using this right here. If our shoe is not far enough back to cover the heel, as you see here, then this part right here just behind the shoe is a prime spot for that heel to crack because of the pressure that's going to be exerted downward over the metal shoe itself.
Absolutely.
If the shoe is placed too far back, the same thing can happen again, in that we're still applying excess pressure to the heel area itself. We're going to be in sensitive tissue there, so the horse is going to be lame as well.
With it being too far back, can that also possibly cause the toe crack?
You'll have more problems if it's too far forward. You'd be more susceptible to a toe crack and a heel crack at the same time.
Okay, got
Okay.
you there.
Okay. So, heel crack was the last type of crack, okay? Now, at what point do we call in the farrier and we call in the veterinarian? When does it become an emergency? When does it become critical that we seek professional help? Of course, if we've only got a superficial crack, then not necessarily, okay? I mean, if we're concerned about the superficial crack, snap a picture, send it to your farrier, see what he or she would think about that. But if we had instability in the hoof wall itself, then we need help, okay? If we have drainage, fluids, blood, so forth, we need help from a professional. If that horse is lame, we need help from a
absolutely.
professional, okay? If we have an injury directly to the coronary band, we need help, okay? So there are times when this becomes an emergency situation, Corbin. Any questions at this point before we go on?
Again, you guys feel free to drop questions down at any time. Pam would like to know what would you do for a bar crack? I'm assuming that's kind of the next part that we're going to get into here.
Yeah, it's going a lot of times to take some professional help from your farrier, okay? In fact, there are certain therapeutic shoes that can be used at that point to help support that bar crack itself, okay? So it's going to take some professional help, and it's also going to take a lot of time and effort from the horse owner in cleaning and keeping that area,
Cleaned out.
either bandaged or whatever in a situation like that. Of course, there are different types of therapeutic shoes. There is such thing as a hospital plate, which would completely cover the entire sole of the foot, or sometimes it would be a lot of trouble, but a pad could be used as well
Mhm.
to protect that bar crack as well.
Well, and you just made a good point. I know there are some horse owners out there who, they believe, the farrier has complete control over the hoofs, right? No one looks at the hoof until the farrier comes out.
Mhm.
If you really want to get rid of these hoof cracks, and if you really want the healthiest hoof possible, that's a team effort. That means, picking up the hoof yourself, cleaning it, applying these products, changing the diet of the horse to fit those nutritional needs, and doing what you can along with the support of your farrier and through the advice of your farrier, and basically giving the farrier the best hoof possible to work with.
Sure. Question number 3.
Okay, question number 3.
Question number
Let
3.
me get my timer ready. Okay, guys, again, you'll have 2 minutes to answer this question. And then we will randomly pick one of the correct answers to win, again, our prize pack. So the last question of the day, again, this is for U.S. Only due to international laws. Where do quarter cracks usually start? Where do quarter cracks usually start? So I am doing my 2 minutes now. Okay, Mike. So while this 2 minutes is going, what would your, I guess, number one advice or tip to avoiding that hoof crack? What would that be?
Well, there would actually be several of those that we could call number one, but from the horse owner standpoint, nutrition is highly critical.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that kind of leads me into the last session, the section that I really wanted to talk about there, is that if we've got a good, healthy horse, it's going to be reflected in that hoof capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And if we got a good, strong, healthy hoof capsule with thick hoof walls and thick soles, then we're less likely to have a crack number one. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
I mean, that makes sense, right? That healthy hoof is going to be more resilient to so many
Sure.
of those issues.
Right. And then from the horse owner standpoint, we've got to take care of the environmental situation that works against the hoof capsule as well. I mean, we can feed the best feed, we can feed the best supplement, but if we allow the excess moisture, if we allow the dryness, and if we allow the bacteria and the fungi to consume the hoof capsule, it's all for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Absolutely. Okay, guys, we've got about 20 seconds left. So make sure you get that answer in. One more time. Let me read that question one more time.
Okay.
Where do quarter cracks usually start?
Mm-hmm.
So again, get those questions in. We only have a few seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you're just now joining us, don't forget we do have the grand prize giveaway, and that link should be scrolling at some point in time during the presentation. Okay, so that's the end. Let me check with Mr. Will, see if we've got a winner. Yes, we have a winner. Okay, so the correct answer was, I don't need that. I don't know why I'm looking at it.
You know where it comes from.
It's the coronary band,
Right.
right?
It migrates down toward the ground.
Absolutely.
Right.
So the winner is Robin Beard Phillips. Congratulations, Robin. You will email cservice@lifedatalabs.com. In the subject line, you can put live giveaway winner. We will need your address, phone number, t-shirt size, and what color shirt out of the teal or the dark green. And you will win the hoof clay, the finish, hat, shirt, and of course the breeder's formula for your canine friend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mike. Well, let's talk a little bit about nutrition
Okay.
and how that can
All
help with
right.
these hoof cracks.
Let's talk about some things that a horse owner can do to prevent the situation. Then we're eventually going to get down to nutrition.
I guess
here
I'm
in just a minute.
jumping ahead,
That's
aren't I?
okay. That's okay. All right. But let me back up and say this too about quarter cracks. And we said that they originate out of the coronary band and they want to migrate down toward the ground. A lot of times when this happens, there's no migration there. It's a done deal. Okay, we have a complete crack from the coronary band all the way through the sidewall or the quarter itself. Okay, where we have migration a lot of times is if we had an abscess that was in the quarter and it ruptured at the coronary band, weakening the side of the hoof wall, then a lot of times that the weakening, we do have the migration of the crack there.
Gotcha.
Okay, all right. So we said this just a few minutes. We need to keep a good, healthy horse. Balanced diet, by all means. Okay. And we need to maintain the right body condition in our horses. Corbin, what percent of the horse population in the U.S. is overweight?
50%.
50%. So if that 50% of our horses are overweight and they're carrying an excess 150 to 200 pounds, what does that do to the feet?
That's going to pancake those feet out a little bit.
That's right.
Added pressure.
It puts more strain and pressure on the hoof capsules themselves. So let's maintain the correct body condition. Exercise, important to hoof capsule, the quality of the hoof capsule. If we have a horse that's moving, we have blood that's pumping. If we have blood that's pumping, then we have nutrients that's being fed and delivered to the hoof capsule, to the laminae, to regenerate and regrow the foot itself. We've already said this, regular farrier schedule. Get on it and stay on it. When you go too long, you're running the risk of some form of crack, okay? If you've got to use some type of traction aids, especially if you're riding in a slippery condition or whatever, only use those when needed, okay? Those traction aids are valuable, yes, on that slick surface, but they also put more pressure on that hoof capsule as well. So be mindful of the traction aids and only use those when needed, okay?
Makes sense.
Now, talk about nutrition. The one thing, you got a question?
We did have, what is your ideal body scale condition?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 is the ideal body condition in a horse, okay? And that horse is not too thin, and that horse is not too heavy. When we get in a body condition score of a 7, we've got a little excess flesh, excess fat on the horse itself, and if we're up there in a 9, then we've done peaked out there.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And we certainly don't want to be at the lower end of the scale as well. Okay. Now, another thing that we can do to help avoid cracks and improving the overall quality of our hoof capsule comes about through nutrition. And one of the options is to add a hoof supplement to the diet of the horse. And of course, the hoof supplement that we manufacture here at Life Data Labs for the past 40 plus years is Farrier Formula. And of course, one of the options is the double strength version there.
Which again, if you're across the seas, you may know this as the double concentrate,
correct,
and not the double strength.
Right.
But it's the same product.
Same product. So the identical product, just a different name.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is a supplement that we feed daily along with what we're feeding our horse. Okay. And a 1,000-pound horse, we're only going to feed 3 ounces or a half a cup of the product daily. So we've got a 60-day supply in this 11-pound bag. There's a 3-year shelf life on that 11-pound bag as well. Okay. And nutrition is not an overnight fix either. In fact, once we start, we've got to continue to feed the product. And typically within 2 to 3 months of feeding Farrier's Formula, we're going to have new hoof growth that's going to be generated at the coronary band. And we can actually see and feel a slight bulge that the product has encouraged the horse to grow the foot, and that comes about internally. And what it's going to do as it regrows this foot itself is, and we said internally, the thing that we need to take a look at and work on is hoof wall thickness. And if we see the inside of the foot here, this is all the hoof wall we have right here. That's it. That's what supports this 1,000-pound horse there. So the more hoof wall we have, the stronger the hoof wall it is, the less likelihood that we're going to have a crack. Of course, it's going to thicken and give us a little more cushion and a little more protection underneath the coffin bone as well, and that's going to improve sole thickness as we regrow this foot internally as well. Of course, if we already have a crack, then as we said earlier, we can't put the crack back together, but we've got to regrow that entire, we got to grow the band out.
Yep.
And replace it with a good, solid, sound foot.
Now,
Okay.
I know a lot of people watching, they're probably like, well, of course, Farrier's formula is Life Data's product. But the thing that makes Farrier's formula different is one, of course, that, it was developed by Dr. Frank Gravely
Right.
40 plus years ago through blood research, right?
Right.
He analyzed what those horses were missing. And as we talked about, you've got to have balanced nutrition.
Right.
And so even some other supplements that may have ingredients that are similar, it's about the formula.
It's about
Right.
proportion and ratio of these ingredients to each other.
I always kind
Right.
of explain it like baking a cake.
Right.
You throw too much flour in, you throw in too many eggs, it's not going to end up being a cake. It's not
Right.
going to be the same thing.
Right.
Also, Farrier's formula is the only hoof supplement on the market that has a white paper,
That's correct.
which means it was independently studied outside of Life Data and proven through its effectiveness.
Right. And the results actually published
In the
in the
results
veterinary
published.
record.
That's right.
And one other point too about Farrier's formula when it comes to the farrier industry, it is the number one recommended hoof supplement.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So of course we have the original, then the double strength
Right.
or the double concentrate, and then here in the U.S. we also have the now Farrier's formula double strength plus joint.
Right.
So that's going to be your combination joint and hoof repair. And so if you are feeding those joint hoof separately,
sure.
you may want to look into the double strength plus joint. It's can be a little bit more economical if you're feeding those
Right.
separately. Also, and again, it's balanced, so
Right.
you're not going to have to worry about that over supplementation.
Especially when it comes to sulfur.
Yes.
Right. So if you're feeding a separate hoof supplement, the sulfur is going to come from the DL-methionine that's in the hoof supplement. And if you're feeding a joint supplement that contains MSM, you have sulfur there as well.
Absolutely.
And when you combine the DL-methionine and the sulfur that's in the joint, we often exceed what the horse needs daily as far as sulfur, and that creates an adverse effect on hoof quality.
Yep.
And so that was one of the reasons that this product or this combo product was created.
Yes, and it's a relatively new product. So again, right now it's only in the United States. We do have a couple questions real quick, if
Okay.
you don't mind. Let's see, where did the one go? What do you think of short cycle trimming to improve the strength of a horse hoofs?
What do I think about
Short cycle trimming.
how often you trim a horse depends on the horse itself and how much hoof growth you're getting. Some horses are going to go 6-7 weeks without any issue and without taking off too much. Some horses need to be backed up to 4 to 5 weeks. So if you have a horse that's growing quite a bit of foot, then you need to shorten that shoeing cycle, yes, or trimming cycle.
So I guess if you do have a horse that's just not showing a lot of growth, you don't want to necessarily do those short trimming cycles.
That's right, right. In other words, there's nothing there for the farrier to really trim, okay?
Does putting a staple on the upper edge of a toe crack help it from getting worse?
Yeah, there are many, many ways to go about remedying a crack and stabilizing a crack, and I won't get into that. That would be something that you would need to consult with a professional farrier about. They'll know how to do that. In fact, there are certain metal bands that can be used. There's stitching that can be done, and you name it. But that would be up to you and your farrier to make that decision where you've got a crack and it needs to be stabilized.
Okay. And then the last question on Farrier's formula: how long does it typically take to grow out a hoof?
It depends a lot on the genetics of the horse, number one, but typically on the average about a year to do that.
And that's completely growing out.
That's a complete new hoof in itself.
And as we kind of talked about too, that the environment's going to play a role in
Right.
that. If you're just feeding a supplement, but you're not taking care of that hoof externally, then bacteria and stuff is just going to eat that new hoof growth.
Okay.
So
Will, if you would put up slide 3 for me. This is the same nasty foot that we looked at earlier. And the difference that went into improving hoof quality is we improved the environment. We got the horse out of the wet conditions. Ferrous formula was added to the diet of the horse. And about a year later, this is what we ended up with there. Of course, you can still see some surface marking and cracking. And of course, that came about because of the damage that was done up into the coronary band itself. But at least a tremendous improvement in hoof quality.
tremendously.
Okay? All right. Another thing that we need to be mindful too when it comes to preventing a hoof crack, and we'll go to slide number 4. And it may be a little hard to see on the legs of the horse there, but it's fly season again. And we have some horses that are very sensitive to flies. And what they do is they'll stand there and they'll stomp.
Absolutely.
And that will contribute to a crack or worsen the crack a lot of times as well. So we need to do a good job as far as preventing the flies if we can, and eliminating the flies if we can do that. All right. We also need to be mindful of the surface that we're riding on. If we're on an extremely hard surface and we're pounding the surface, just like the horse stomping flies,
yes,
we can create a situation that's not good as well. And the other thing I think have stressed this over and over, and that's the environment.
Absolutely.
We've got to do a good job in protecting that hoof capsule against bacteria, fungi, wet and dry conditions. I think we've talked about Ferrous Finish already. It's a liquid product. It's an antimicrobial, plus it's going to help either shed or retain the needed moisture in the hoof capsule, especially if it's dry. The other one was the hoof clay there. It's an antimicrobial. It's in a paste clay form, and it's for specific problems either in the hoof wall or the sole of the foot. Great for a thrush problem. It's also great if we have some wall separation. And if that horse is shod, if you'll get your farrier to coat the white line area with the clay and then nail the shoe on top of it, that will help clean that area up as well. And of course, white line too, anytime we have wall separation, we have the beginning of a crack, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay?
And that's where, like you said, the hoof clay, that just fills in those cracks.
Sure.
It stays in place. But essentially, if you really want to get rid of those hoof cracks, to me, this right here, these 3
That's your combo.
is the combo.
Right.
So as far as our grand prize giveaway goes, we're going to give away the combo to 3 people.
Okay.
Right. So again, that bottom link, that's the link. It should be lifedataLabs.com/giveaway. That's where you can register for this. We will announce the winner on Tuesday
about
at
2 o'clock.
Okay. Yep. And the secret code to help you increase your chances
Is what?
is hoof strength.
Hoof strength, okay?
Right? Because hoof strength is part of the prevention.
That's right.
Right? So hoof strength is the key word. Of course, there are many things that you can do to continue increasing your chances to win. You can, visit us on Facebook, on Instagram. To me, the best one to take advantage of is the sharing with your friends. So share the contest with the other horse owners. There's a little special link that's generated when you click on that, and that enables you to share it. And every time a friend enters the contest, it gives you more entries. So, if you get 50 friends to do it, then that's a lot of entries.
Sure, absolutely, right.
So that is, of course, like I said, the combo product. We did have someone ask about if iron in Fair's formula. If there's any additional iron,
There is no additional iron that's been added to Fair's formula. So it's very safe to feed from that standpoint if you have concerns about iron content.
Gotcha.
Yes, yes. And our time is basically gone for today.
Yes.
And we thank you for joining us this afternoon. And if we didn't get to your question this afternoon, if you will join us Tuesday at 2, then you'll have another opportunity to ask the question, and hopefully we
Absolutely.
can get to you.
and you don't have to wait for these live events to ask your questions. Feel free to message us. I mean, we get Facebook messages all day long on our website. There's a contact us option where you can contact us through there. Our customer service team is here to help you. So feel free to jump on the phone, jump on the computer, ask us those questions. We're here to help.
Sure.
That's why we do this, especially during this time when so many events have been closed down. We want to be in front of you guys. We want to help you, and we want to improve the health of your horses.
And Corbin, the most important individual as far as maintaining a healthy horse and good quality feed, you know who that is?
I'd say
It's a horse
owner.
owner. It's you, the horse owner, right?
Absolutely.
Because you see the horse
Every
daily,
day.
right?
Absolutely. Announcing the winner, that's 2:00 Central Time.
Right.
Sorry to break in on there. That is 2:00 Central Time. But yeah, absolutely. It's the horse owner. You're going to see that. You see that horse almost every day. Don't be scared to pick up those feet, to clean it out daily. To put on these products are super easy to put on yourself. They're not going to burn you. They're not going to harm you as far as getting it on your skin and so on. So don't be scared to do it. And again, there's videos on YouTube where we show Mike here has demonstrations of doing it, or call us because we'd be happy to help you out.
Right.
So
We're here to help you.
I guess that's it. Thank you guys again for being with us today, and don't forget to join us Tuesday to see who wins the grand prize giveaway. We'll see you at 2:00 Central on Tuesday. Everybody have a great weekend.
That's right.
Thank you again.
Thank you for your time.